Exactly that. We're going to have some educational advice from other entrepreneurs. We'll talk to you specifically about the financial things that you need to get a hold of in order to be successful as an entrepreneur. By the experts, for the experts, right? Okay, so a couple things first. We do have our hashtag 1MCCOLA. If you're going to put us up on social media, please do that. This is our 5th year of 1 million cups, so I want to thank all of you who've been participating for this amount of time. In the back row, who thinks he's brand new. So those of us who've been around for a while, we remember how 1MC grew from the beginning. So we're going to do a Kahoot here in just a couple minutes. If you've never done a Kahoot before, you'll need your phone. Welcome, newcomers. Have a seat.
We're going to fill it up, people. Have y'all showered?
Casey. We're not live streaming. I'll put it up later. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually better probably for this one. Especially when we've got this kind of like traffic coming in. Well, we're not live streaming. So the Facebook people have to get it later. There's a lot of people at home right now frustrated because their Facebook won't load, and it's because we're not live streaming today.
Millions and millions.
Yeah, millions of them. Millions of them. Our beautiful sponsors, we want to thank all of our sponsors, the University of South Carolina's McNair Institute for Free Enterprise and Entrepreneurship, Bronx Security Solutions, who provides us with our coffee and our snacks, the Richland Library that gives us our beautiful space, our newcomers. We're not normally in this space, we're normally downstairs, which is why it feels a little awkward for everybody today, but there is coffee next door, so help yourself to that both now as you need to, and then of course afterwards as well. Fanatic Productions, who's going to video for today. If you missed some important part because you stepped out to go get coffee, don't worry, the video will be up later on the Facebook page, and the Office of Business Opportunities as well. It's hard to read my sponsors when they're behind me. Okay, no, before we get to you, you want a Kahoot? Where's my Kahoot? There it is. Let's Kahoot. So the prize for Kahooting, because I know you all want to know what's at stake here. The prize is one of these lovely books. So you'll want to get out your phone, and you'll want to pull up the Kahoot app if you have already installed it. And if you've not installed it, you can go to kahoot.it on your web browser and play the game.
And there's sound.
This is the smallest little laptop ever. My little Mac self has no idea how to work this little thing. It's totally ruined me. Oh, I know, but I can't even control C yet. You can't control C. This is what I know. Like every time I touch it, it's
Chat.
I can't make it work.
You chat.
I'll talk.
Don't give up. You know we're in trouble
Yeah,
when
don't give up.
Hilton is running your tech.
So you can get on the library Wi-Fi for free and download the both the 1MC app. If you check in on the 1MC app, you can provide us feedback directly to us about today's session. Say nice things, please. I'm just kidding, we don't care. And then, I'm kidding again. And then the other thing you can download for free using the library's Wi-Fi is the Kahoot app. So the word is Kahoot, K-A-H-O-O-T. And if you have that Kahoot app on your phone, you'll be able to pull it up. Use your phone right away and just put in the game pin whenever we get there. Ah, good.
You want to log in?
No, you don't have to. You just hit play. Play as guests. Yes. And go down to classic. The green one down there?
Yes.
Classic. Okay. So you can either use the Kahoot app or go to kahoot.it and put in your game pin. And then you'll put in a name, and whoever wins gets books. And there's something that's I need it. Anybody need more time? More time. The University of South Carolina's McNair Institute is who bought all these books for us, and they said find a way to give them away. And this is the best way to do it, isn't it? All right, here we go. One MC Columbia launched in March 2014 with how many people in attendance?
Ooh, I know the answer.
3, 10, 15, or 25? You were one of them?
Probably.
All right, we got our blue people moving ahead. The clicker hates me. Dan the man taking the lead. The early lead. Were you here? 10 people? How long did it take 1 million cups to become the #1 entrepreneurial event in town? How long did it take? You answered maybe next year.
I was tempted to. I was really tempted to.
Keep it real, Casey.
So that is a direct quote from John Wilkinson, who was one of the founders. When he sent the press release for our 1-year anniversary, he said we were the #1 entrepreneurial event in town. And when I looked for evidence of that, there was none. Just so you know, it took us 1 year to become #1. Look at us go. All right, what's next? Dan the man, still in the lead. Original organizers include Agatha Kaczynski, John Wilkinson, Greg Hillman, or all of the above. Those of you regulars know when I give a quiz and one of the answers is all of the above, the answer is all of the above. 23 people who've been here before. So yes, Greg is one of our only original organizers that's still hanging around with us, and Agatha and John are his cohorts. He can't give us up. He said, I just can't quit you. All right, before the Richland Library, 1MC Columbia met where? USC Incubator, Cromer's Peanuts, Midlands Technical College, or Greg's house? I mean, there were only 10 people, right? You might as well just been a Greg's house. That's Cromer's Peanuts, actually. How many of you all were with us when we were at Cromer's Peanuts? Yeah, quite a few of us still hanging around. See, y'all can't quit us either. Okay, Dan the man, still in the lead. Last question, ready? 1-year anniversary meeting presenters were who? Who presented at our 1-year anniversary? Was it Matt Body of ERG Payroll and Greg Hilton of SoCo? Was it Derek Walker of Brown & Browner and Debbie Schagel of Flock and Rally? Was it Sean Reagan and Phil Waddle, or was it Ewing and Marion Kaufman? Oh, we're all split on that. It was actually the yellow block. It was Sean Reagan and Phil Waddell. And if you don't know them, that's because they're not still around, right? But yeah, those were our presenters for that 1-year anniversary meeting. Dan, come get your book. Anne, come get a book.
I need a book. Give it to them, please.
You already have
yeah, you've already won before.
Dan has like 12 books.
Yeah.
We need to step it up.
All right, who's our I need a book person? All right, we're gonna pass this to who? Not you. The person that played the game whose name was I need a book. Who was that?
There's a young lady.
Pass that one back. And then S and Anne were the other two that won. Anne, pass that back to Anne. Pass this back to the back row. And where was S?
Well, I'm going to give it to someone here. There we go.
All right, we Kahoot because it's fun and because we have books. Okay, moving on. What's next on the line? All right, we did our sponsors. And now, we want to recognize our U.S. Department of Labor, who is our Partner of the Month this this month. Say hi.
Good morning. My name is Domingo Murguia. I'm an investigator with the U.S. Department of Labor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce the work of the Wage and Hour Division to so many small business owners and entrepreneurs. We're located in the federal building on Assembly Street, and my district office covers all South Carolina. I'm here on behalf of Colin Trimble, the Community Outreach Resource Planning Specialist, and we're focused on getting compliance assistance materials to businesses that must follow the laws that we enforce, and providing outreach presentations to employer groups and employee groups that so that both sides are aware of their rights and responsibilities for compliance. There is a list of laws the Wage and Hour Division enforces, and our website has plenty of information about the rules to follow under each law. Let's see, feel free to call Colin Trimble. His number should be up there. If you have any questions or you're interested in more detailed presentations on the topics. One new program I like to mention is called the PAID program, and it's a self-reporting tool that allows employers acting in good faith to resolve inadvertent FLSA minimum wage and overtime problems while reducing the cost of litigation. The PAID web address is on the bottom right of the slide, and it can be easily found if you search the Wage and Hour Division website. Thanks for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Our employee of the month program, our partner of the month program. If you're interested in being a partner of the month or know an organization that you'd like to bring to 1MC as a partner of the month, talk to Sergio. He lines those up and takes their checks. I mean cash. Unmarked bills. Okay. Our 1MC education sessions are something that is also unique to the Columbia chapter, like our Partner of the Month program. Our education sessions are typically when we have a lot of chatter around a particular topic, and we bring people together to talk about that particular topic for you. So we're not going to bore you to pieces with this. What we decided to do was come up with a list of 10 things that affect you financially as a business owner, and we're going to talk through each of those, and we want to welcome discussion and get you all involved in this as well. So it's not necessarily an expert-driven panel here, as much as it's some folks that are willing to lead the discussion on these 10 topics. So, without further ado, Tim Bradford, our facilitator for today.
And do we have okay, good. Okay, we're going to start with this. I think each of you have one of these. If you don't, you need some? Lord, what happened? Yes, ma'am. Okay. While we're passing, you need one?
Oh, no, he got it.
Do you have more?
Well, there aren't three more. Yeah, some of you are going to have to share. If you're uncomfortable with that, I apologize.
Or you can pay 25 cents a copy for the library.
Exactly. But okay, wait, we have more copies coming. But while we have more copies coming, you can share with someone. There are a couple of things. We'll get started with the 1 and 2. This is a part of a presentation that normally takes about an hour and a half. We're not going to do an hour and a half. It's going to be about 4 or 5 minutes. However, when I called my colleagues who in the legal and the accounting professions and said, hey, is there anything new that we need to share? I'm doing this presentation with 1 Million Cups. What's new? Said nothing's really new. Every single person said the exact same thing. I told them what the 10 things were. Every single one said, including one of Tom's employees, said, make sure number 1 and number 2 are number 1 and number 2. So we're going to talk about corporate structure, and then Tom's going to feed right into why the corporate structure is so important. You have those in front of you, so we're not going to spend a lot of time. I just took some brief bullet points from the 1 hour presentation that I wanted to share with you. And the first is, as you notice, the first on the list is sole proprietorship. And all of you hopefully understand what a sole proprietorship is. So I'm just going to make a few bullet points about sole proprietorship. One of the things that a lot of people may not realize is you're automatically considered to be a sole proprietorship if you do activities but you don't register your business. Yeah, sole proprietors do not produce a separate business. You're a sole proprietor, so there is not a separate business. Sole proprietors are still able to get trade names, and it could be hard to raise money because banks are hesitant to lend to sole proprietorships. Partnerships, as we're going along here, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. But we're going to go through it fairly quickly. You can take that with you, what you have, and then if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to ask questions. Partnerships, these are probably this is personally my least favorite. I have horror stories about partnerships and I'm in one now. I'm not talking about my marriage.
Good point of clarification.
Yeah. Partnerships are the simplest structure, and there's basically two types of partnerships: a limited liability partnership and a limited partnership. And again, I'll just give you the skim over. The difference between a limited partnership is, in a limited partnership, picture this: there's 5 people that are partners. One of those people is liable for everything. Okay, everybody else is the 4 people are not liable for everything else. That's a simple version. In a limited liability partnership, nobody's liable in a limited liability partnership. So there's a distinct difference. Limited liability company. How many people here are registered as an LLC? Woo! Good Lord. Why? Anybody?
It's easier to file, and accepted in most places in the United States.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Tom, do you have anything?
No, I think most businesses today are LLCs. They're relatively simple, relatively flexible. If you're the only owner, they don't have to file separate tax returns. There are some kind of businesses that don't want to be that. If you have aspirations of growing your company and taking on investors, lawyers will usually point you to being a C corporation than an LLC. But for an awful lot of businesses, LLCs is the way to go.
Yeah. And LLCs protect you from liability in most cases, and that's probably, I don't know who guided you to do that, or if you learned it from LegalZoom or whatever. In many states, limited liabilities have a limited lifespan, which a lot of people don't realize. Okay, we have extra copies. Who needs extra copies?
Can I ask a question about that? And I don't know if this question is for Tom or not, but from an LLC perspective, like sometimes you see businesses represent themselves with their comma LLC. How important is that? I mean, can you just go with your business name and drop the LLC and like marketing stuff?
In marketing stuff, yes. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to get in trouble with the bar. But a lot of businesses will have a legal name, LLC or corporation, but they have a brand name that they use. So that's perfectly acceptable.
Add to that, our attorney told us whenever we write registered LLC, it keeps that distinction so that they don't try to come after you personally, and make sure that you're separating the business from your personal stuff.
That's important for you because your last name is part of your business name. If your name is separate, like mine is Fanatic Productions, it's a clear distinction that it is not me personally.
Right. There's no confusing Fanatic Productions with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good clarification.
That's about it for LLCs, and again, we want to give everybody time, and we want to give Tom time to get. Quick thing, I do want to go over corporations. As you can see, there's C corps and S corps, but there are other type of corporations as well. There are cooperations, cooperates, non-profits, B corps. The most common one that everybody is familiar with, other than the LLC, is a C corp, and that's your corporate where you can sell stock, and none of the owners have any obligation. It's a separate entity, total from all the people involved, the shareholders, and everything else. But the importance of how you set up your business is number one. everybody said, make sure that people understand that they set up their business, because it will affect how you're taxed. And as anybody here has ever been, and I'm very open about it, 2 years in a row, I had my account frozen 1 week before Christmas, twice in my life. Do not fool with the IRS. Get it right. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That part.
one last thing about corporate entity, get a lawyer to help you make the decision. I think that's
Yeah.
you will avoid problems down the road if you set it up correctly to begin with. So find a lawyer you trust and get them to help you through that. So accounting is my topic, and we could spend days talking about accounting, but I just want to hit a couple of high spots. If you're in business, you have to do accounting. And the reason you have to do accounting is because Uncle Sam wants his money, and you've got to have records in order to file your tax returns, right? If you have investors, you have an obligation to them to provide them with financial information periodically, so you need accounting to have that information available. If you have grants of any kind, SBIR grants or any other kind of government grants, usually there's a reporting obligation. You've got to report to them how you spent the money. You've got to have accounting systems to be able to do that. If you have any bank debt, you probably have to report to a bank. You've got to have accounting systems to be able to accomplish that. And then beyond those things where you owe things to outsiders, there are inside reasons to have accounting. It helps you manage your business, and it may help you with whatever your business strategy is. Just give you an example. If you're competing in the marketplace with a lot of other folks, and you decide that your strategy is to be the low-cost provider, right? That's a common strategy. Walmart is the low-cost provider. If you're going to be the low-cost provider, you've got to understand what your costs are, so that you can squeeze out all the unnecessary costs. That's a strategic reason to have accounting. So, accounting's a necessary thing. When you're first starting out, it doesn't have to be real complicated. It can be paper and pencil. It can be Excel. It can be QuickBooks. But you don't have to start real complicated. The further along you get, and depending on what kind of business you've got, it becomes more complicated. Somebody like Joe, I assume, has point of sale equipment and software that feeds into his accounting system, so it just depends on what your business is. And the last thing I want to touch on that young companies struggle with sometimes, especially if you're just starting out by yourself, is whether you do the accounting or whether you hire somebody to do the accounting. Do you do it yourself or do you outsource it? That's not an easy decision, and that decision changes it could change from month to month, depending on how your business is. There are a lot of things you can consider, but I would boil it down to this. If your time is more valuable doing other things, if you can make more money selling or make more money producing than you can save by doing the accounting yourself, then outsource the accounting. It's an investment decision. Do I spend my time doing this that makes me this much money, or do I spend my time doing accounting that saves me this much? That really is a pretty simple question. Right? Correct.
Sidecar pro tip. If you are an LLC and you generate a profit, whether you take it or not, you have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pay the IRS
Yeah.
for profit you have made in your LLC. Whether you write a check from your company to yourself or not, you are obligated to that money, even if you keep it in that retained earnings account.
Sounds like spoken like a person who's been burned before.
It's like,
Would you speak to the importance of separating your personal monies
If it's
and
already
your
profit.
business monies?
Yes,
Ooh.
right. The question is,
And that's going to come up on, that's one of the,
Oh.
the
Yeah, that's one of the 10.
Yeah, but if you,
Let me
Yeah,
just,
Tom,
the question's on the table.
Yeah.
The question is the importance of keeping you separate from your business. Absolutely critical, because government agencies, the IRS, they look at your business, especially all those hands, you have LLCs. It's a separate legal entity from you personally. And so you want to keep things separate. Don't commingle the money. Don't confuse the pockets. All right.
It's called piercing the corporate veil, and what will happen is actually the topic I was.
Yeah, he's going to do that topic in a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
So keep it separate. That doesn't mean they're not related. So one thing that happens frequently, especially when you're starting out, you got a personal bank account but haven't yet set up a business account. Is it okay to spend money out of your personal account for business expenses? The answer is yes, but it comes down to accounting. If you spend money out of your personal account for a business expense, your business now owes you that money back. That's the way it gets accounted for. It's a business expense. At some point, hopefully, the business is able to pay you back.
That's right.
So you keep the two entities distinct, but it doesn't mean you can't take care of some business stuff through personal assets, if that makes sense.
Something to add, Jared?
Steve?
I have a question. So if they decide to audit you, how does that happen? What are they looking at?
First, you'll get a letter from the IRS. We've selected you for audit.
Please do not ignore the letter.
Don't ignore the letter, but also don't, we've all received 5,000 phone calls from the IRS.
They do not
and
call.
They're about to call the sheriff. That never happens, all right? They'll send you a letter. They'll ask you to call the IRS, set up an appointment, and it can be done a couple of different ways. There's a desk audit where you just send them some requested information, or they can come see you. If you've had an accountant involved, then as soon as you get that letter, you send that letter to your accountant and get them to help you. It's usually much better than you handling it all yourself. But they're going to come in, they'll ask for supporting documentation for whatever they question. Tell me about that trip you took to Vegas and how was that business related, and you've got to be able to explain that to them and show them the receipts.
Folks, we're running real close on time. If you have any more questions for Tom afterwards, please address them after.
It's a big point, though.
Okay.
I think Tom is doing the basics on accounting, and a lot of us in the room only use accountants the way Tom's describing. But accountants can help with pricing, with pay, and all that. They're multifaceted, and I think you gotta at least have an accountant to explore some of that, and there are more uses for an accountant. And Tom and I have talked about it.
Yeah, and what we say in our business is we don't want to just be your accountant, we want to be your trusted business advisor. We can help with a lot of things.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll move on to the third one. Greg, Hilton, you were going to...
That's mine.
Huh?
The third one's mine, isn't it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so I don't think I can say it other than this, just to focus on doing one thing well. And this is a lesson I learned early on. A lot of times when we get into a solo business, and then you get into, I call it income panic, where like nobody's buying what you thought you were selling, and so you just sell whatever anybody will buy. That's where you start to lose focus in your business, and that's when your business really starts to slide down into the wrong direction. So what you want to do is think about the different products or services that you have and categorize those products and services and be very specific about who they're for, and then focus on marketing those particular products and services to the people that you think will buy them. Once you start to get traction on one over the others, really put all your emphasis behind that one and get that one really up and sailing, really get some wind in those sails, and once you're able to do that, then you'll have the revenue that you need to pursue some of these other things. But if somebody asks you what you do in your business and you've got 16 answers, you don't really have a focus in your business, so it's probably worth it to go and try to categorize all those different services that you're offering into just a couple of different categories, and then really push on the one that you think you're going to get traction on. Does anybody have any experiences or want to share anything related to that? How did you find the thing that got you, this is what we're focused on? We talk about this all the time about focusing, and a lot of times when our people come in here to present their business, one of the questions we ask them is, what are you focused on? What's the thing that you think is going to make you some money? Yes, Derek.
I'm on the flip side because, coming from advertising, I deal with people who want to put a message out. It's almost impossible to put a message out for everyone. But everyone wants to be loved and liked by everybody.
Right.
Sometimes you have to have, the thing about this focus is you have to have it because you're building a business. And that message has to go to one particular group for a while and be sustained. And it's hard to do when you're trying to please everybody.
That's exactly right.
And
you can't please
conversion is
everybody.
important.
So that's the number 7 on the list is don't be everything for everyone, but I'm glad you brought it up because we're running short on time, so we can just marry those together and I can stop talking altogether. But yeah, I think you're exactly right, Derek. And when you start focusing on the one, when you start focusing on that one thing and you're giving those people the right message, if they're not biting, you're not selling it, right? So customer validation is a big part of starting your own business. Go out there and find people who are willing to buy what you're selling. And if you ask 35 people and nobody's willing to buy it, that's a good indication that what you're selling is not sellable. Nobody wants it, right? So stop trying to sell something that nobody wants to buy. So I think that's important too. A lot of times solopreneurs and entrepreneurs skip over customer validation. Just because you think it's a great idea doesn't mean other people are going to pay you for it. So spend some time focused on one particular thing. Do your due diligence, your customer validation. Find out who else is doing this out there in the market. And if they're doing it better than you, maybe step away and let them just keep doing it, right? But if you can do it better than them, now you have a competitor and you have to figure out how you're going to compete with those people. So do that customer validation piece, and that's going to help you focus on doing the one thing right and also on not being everything to everybody. Tom.
Well, the one thing right can come down to, can I monetize what I'm trying to do?
Absolutely.
If the language of business is money, if you can't monetize what you're trying to do, forget it.
That's right. You don't have a business, you have a hobby.
You got 15 other things you can try to monetize.
Right. If you're not making any money at it, it's a hobby. Yeah. Larry.
To validate that is that the small businesses that do fail within the first 3 months, 41% of those fail because there's actually no need for their product.
See, statistics don't lie, people. Especially when they show up randomly. All right, number 4. You're number 4. Tom is number 4.
Spend less than you make. It sounds like it'd be common sense, right? The one way you have to do is working with that, you have to track your expenses. Okay. Now, owning a copy of QuickBooks does not make you an accountant, but you need to understand the accountancy. I'm going to go back to that. You need to, where's the money? Where's it going? What did I spend it on? And did I get anything out of it? All right. So, and I used to say, first thing I did in the morning in my business, I get up, have a cup of coffee, open it, go online to the bank account, see how much money I had in the bank. Okay? Well, that works until 8 o'clock, right? And then you start spending money again, and then you got to know when the next money's coming in, right? So it's not a matter of, how much are you going to make? You have to look out in front of you, right? What's my billings or income projection for the next day, week, month, whatever, all right? And track that first, because that's going to determine what you're going to be able to spend, unless you've inherited a lot of money and spending is not something you're worried about. Anybody in that classification? I'm not. All right. So you know how that works, right? Just write checks all day. All right. But the idea here is you have to make visible not only what your income is going to be, but you also have to make visible and keep right here in front of yourself what your expenses are going to be by time frame. And when you look at the bank account on Thursday morning, you got payroll to make Thursday afternoon, and you don't have enough money to make payroll, then you're a business owner. Okay, and then you have to worry about it. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. You got one more too. Next is forget borrowing money, sell something. Greg, I think.
Yes, I've got 5 and 6. They connect to 4. Disclaimer, this is my personal opinion, and I am an expert on my personal opinion. So if you don't agree with this, I respect that. All right, so we have a lot. Show of hands, how many of y'all are under $100,000 in revenue? Okay, so, and that includes not having any because you're pre-market. So at least half of the audience, congrats on the other half that are higher than that. I work with tons of entrepreneurs and early stage companies, and I see so many founders spend an inordinate amount of time scheming and plotting and trying to figure out how to either raise or borrow money to get their company off the ground. I think this is a gigantic mistake. I think it is a terrible idea to raise or borrow to start. I think debt and I think investment are very powerful tools, but mostly when they are used to grow, to accelerate growth. So here's my pitch. 3 reasons to not borrow or raise money if you're a startup. Reason number 1, you spend all your time raising money. Once you start, you can't stop. It is a very difficult thing to do. You talk to any founder that's out there raising money, any CEO, that is their job now, right? When their job really should be finding customers that pay you, that generate revenue. Number 2, that nirvana of spending less than you make, of profitability, right, which is the goal, it's the king of all the things. That nirvana is pushed even further out when you raise money, right? That is debt that you have to pay back, plus interest for the privilege of borrowing. Number 3, and that's for debt, right? That nirvana is pushed off for debt. If you're raising equity, if you are early stage and if you are pre-revenue, you have very little value. The value is what you are able to negotiate or sell, pitch to that prospective investor. So if you raise early, you give more of your company away. You give more away because you have less value, you have less negotiating power. So 3 reasons to not do it, right? Not just to be negative. 3 reasons to bootstrap, and they're pretty similar. Actual revenue, as Casey said, is called traction. If you generate revenue, that means someone likes what you have, right? If you find enough people that like what you have, right, and you can spend less than you make, then you have a viable business. It's that simple. Revenue is your proof. It is your validation in the marketplace. Number 2, traction, if you generate some revenue, will actually sort of facilitate, if you are planning on raising at some point, it'll actually get you the meeting, or at least increase the likelihood that you'll get the meeting with the banker or the meeting with the investor. Most angels, as an example, angel investors, if you're pre-revenue, that's not really in their wheelhouse, right? And it's highly likely that you're not going to get a meeting with them, right? So traction is your knock at the door. It's your way to get that door open if you are raising. Third thing, obviously, is with revenue and profitability and increased revenues, you have more negotiating power when you do go to raise. It's a lot easier to raise money at much better terms when you can say, hey, you know, we're 3 years old. We've done $250,000 in annual recurring revenues. We are a profitable company. We'd like your money to grow. That is a very different conversation than, I got a great idea. It's going to change the world. You got some money? Y'all, weekly that conversation is had all over the country and even in Colombia. All right, so that's it. So that's message number 5. Debt is not bad, right? Debt can be a powerful instrument if you use it the right way. Raising capital from institutional investors or from angels is definitely not bad, but you got to do it the right way, and you got to do it when it's right for your company. And as Tim and Tom said, it's a harder thing to do when you're a solopreneur. It's really, and all things being equal, just go sell some stuff, right? Generate revenue from the people that want to buy your product. They're billion-dollar companies, right? Most of those companies at some point in time had to raise, but a majority of those got a really good early start. We are not Silicon Valley, right? We still care about customer acquisition and traction in the Southeast. All right, next one. So get out of debt.
Can I give an example real quick?
Yes.
Does anybody buy tires from Discount Tire Company? You guys know about Discount Tire Company?
Yeah.
So they are 800 stores nationwide, and they are totally debt-free. Every time they build a new store, it's driven by the revenue of the stores in that region. The stores in that region support that new store until that store starts making money. Their model is 100% revenue driven and always has been. It's a great story. If you're interested in it, I could go on about it for hours, but there are big, massive companies out there that are completely debt-free, revenue driven.
And I just want to say this. I mean, I have raised money. I have raised capital, and I have borrowed for ventures that I've been a part of. So I'm not against it. I'm against using it irresponsibly. And I'm against using it outside of the right circumstances, just to be clear. All right, so next one. Again, lots of personal experience with this. You know, in my years, what I have learned and observed is that if your personal financial house is not in order, your business house is probably not in order. Those things are very connected, right? Even if you're a larger organization, if you are in charge, right, the values that you hold sort of close to you personally, they translate over into the business, right? And right now we are at we're on the precipice, right? $1.3 trillion in student loan debts, $1.5 million, right, in outstanding car loans. The average car payment, 60 months, $540 a month, right? Credit cards in the trillions. These numbers are huge. As a community, as a country, the richest country in the world, a lot of us are struggling day to day, month to month, right? And a big part of that is because we have borrowed too much, right? And when you borrow, when all the income that you bring in is going back out to other people, right, and not back into your company or back into your household or investing in that new roof you need or whatever else, there is no way that you can create momentum. There is no way. And so this sort of personal financial responsibility can translate very easily into your business. And Tom talked about it at the beginning. Right, I mean,
that's right. Or
sure,
Brent
go ahead.
Mallory, the money coach.
Real quick, people don't seem to understand. You put on credit cards, you borrow. You don't pay that off monthly, you borrow. And it makes lower rate. You pay back the minimum, the more you do that more than 1 month, every 5 years, you're in trouble. So don't put it on the credit card. I told kids something, I hadn't borrowed any money, but I got a lot of credit card debt.
I mean, listen, y'all, it is hard because it is institutionalized. All of us in this room, right, and everybody driving around this city, right, have debt. Almost all of us. The only debt that I have now is on my house. And personally, I think that house debt is a good debt. What, 5 years ago? Right, debt about bankrupted me. And if y'all went to my talk that I did, I think about a year ago, you learn a little bit more about that. Right, so we've been to the precipice, and we had to fight our way back. And it is vitally important that you get a handle on your personal financial situation. And, you know, we could spend days on this topic. But if this is something, if what I'm saying is resonating with you, if you're the person waking up every day thinking about money because it's stressing you out, there are lots of different methodologies and approaches out there. One in particular that worked for us was Dave Ramsey and Dave Ramsey's Baby Steps. So very quickly, bless you. I thought she was cheering at first. I'm like, yeah! So take his philosophical beliefs and some of his other beliefs off the table. The plan that these folks have put together works, but it only works when you own the plan and commit to it. And so his plan is really simple, and we're going to go through it. Essentially, when you eliminate we're going to eliminate death next. When you eliminate debt, you then have the power to make better decisions, to start to begin to invest your dollars in things that can help you grow. You can begin to own things, right? Debt essentially is the shackle around all of our necks. When you remove that shackle, you can grow. So baby step number 1, save $1,000. Squirrel away in a little mini emergency fund. So when the tire goes out, you don't have to put it on the credit card. It's not an emergency. Baby step number 2, line up all of your debts, smallest to largest. Not interest rates, smallest to largest. And then start paying those off, right? Don't go to the next debt until the previous one is paid off. That typically is where everybody screws up, and hardly anyone ever gets through this. Baby step 2. When you are out of debt, then there's baby step 3. Baby step 3 is, okay, you get a little baby emergency fund, time to build a little bit more cash reserves for when big things and scary things happen so that you can breathe a little bit. Baby step 4 is finally, after all of those things, start to invest in retirement. The baby step 5 is if you have some kids, you need to start putting some money into those college funds or 529s. Baby step 6, at the end, is pay off your house. And baby step 7 is build wealth. Be super generous. Those are their rules, their path, not ours. But we subscribe to it. And I tell y'all, every time we went off the damn script, every time, right, we went backwards. It just works. Read the book. They've got tons of books, and the podcast is great. They do debt-free screens. It's a really good program.
One quick thing on the after the baby step savings of $1,000, you can save, you can survive 90 days.
Right. That's right.
Well, that is not the way that they do it. They think their argument is getting out of debt is more important than saving for rainy days. Because,
Oh, no. Right.
right, yeah, 3 to 6 months is what they, so whatever, if your household budget is $4,000 a month, well then at a minimum you need to save, you have $12,000 squirreled away in cash, in liquid, something very easy to access in the event that you have an emergency. And it's an incredible thing. That emergency that happened when you have cash is now just a really annoying inconvenience. It doesn't derail your path forward. It doesn't break your household. So I know I went over time, so I'm going to stop there. You do those two things, you don't need to make $1 million a year.
Yeah, that's right. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. Yeah. But and so the next one is you can't be everything that you keep.
I mean, I feel like we touched on that. We're
Okay.
good.
Yeah. All right, we're good. And so the next one then would be financial stuff with your partners in business. And Tom, you agreed to talk about that.
And this one's really simple and really short. Is if it ain't written down, it doesn't exist with you and your partners. All right, if you're in a partner business, you've got to have that partnership written down. What happens if one of you is run over by the beer truck? Local case example: 2 brothers in a family-owned business. One 15 years older than the other was doing his retirement planning, and his brother was going to buy him out of that business, and that was going to be his retirement fund. And he was going to invest in his son, and they launched a whole new section of the business. Younger brother was killed in a tragic accident. They had key man insurance that the company was paying for to help do the buy-sell agreement that they never finished. And when they got into the estate, the younger brother's wife said, I don't want out of the business. I want to be a part of the business. And it came to the point of breaking that company. But they finally recovered from it. But if it's not written down, the partnership agreement and the buy-sell agreement that you got in place is not written down, it doesn't exist. And it's really, really, really ugly when you get into partnership disputes.
And if you have a partnership that's not written down, you're a brave person, and also that means you're willing to walk away with nothing. And I've seen those situations. I'm currently in one of those situations right now, personally, where I'd be willing to walk away with nothing. But I don't recommend that to anybody, even especially with family members. Some of my worst partnership stories are with family members. So if you're going to be in a partnership that's not completely written down, make sure you're willing to walk away from the whole thing and not take a penny from it, but not lose anything. So anyway, sorry, that's a little bit. Thanks, Tom. Next on the list is
Tim, can I
Yes.
add on to that real quick? Because I know we're over time and we're going to probably finish up here in just a minute. But something that a lot of early startups don't do is simply write down things. In consulting, we call them statements of work. So it's just the work you're actually going to do for your customer. And it's an informal contract with your customer, but they sign it and then you sign it so they know what the expectations are. If you go into any kind of joint venture with anybody else, you have a booth at Soda City and you're going to sell somebody else's stuff. Write it down. This is what we're willing to sell, this is what we're willing to give you, and then they sign it and you sign it. Anything you do, it only has to be one page, but you got to get that in writing. Even if it's an email confirmation, just by email, send me an email that confirms that in fact we're in this partnership. But you want to get all of that in writing, because when things go wrong and you get sued, you don't have any evidence that you had a handshake agreement on this. And it's not a jerk thing to do to write it down. In fact, it protects both of you to write it down. And so it's a way of establishing trust with those people that you're going to be doing business with. And if they won't sign a statement of work, you don't do anything for them. Because they're not promised to pay you if they don't sign it. So just keep that in mind. A lot of solopreneurs don't even build out those statement of work.
Thank you, Casey. Next is keeping personal and business finance separate. And I think, Tad, you were going to...
I mean, we kind of talked about that already.
Okay, good.
Keeping your finances separate. The one piece I will touch on is that I briefly mentioned piercing the corporate veil. And what happens is when you start to commingle that money, it makes your LLC null and void. And then they can come after you if you are in some kind of legal trouble. So that's why it's very important to make sure if you are spending money for your company out of your personal, that you pay your company pays you back, If you're taking a salary, all of that needs to be in separate accounts, so it's clearly defined that you're not spending out of your business account for personal reasons.
And on top of all that, accounting for business finances and commingled personal finances is a gigantic pain in the ass.
Nightmare.
Like you will spend hours trying to find stuff, so just don't do it. It's easy. Set up a business account. Get a debit card out of the business account. Put checks
or
into that
mess
business
it
account.
up and then pay me to clean it up.
That's the other
The
alternative.
other part to that is, and I can tell you, there's nothing like having a check payroll balance.
Oh, God.
And I know ad agencies, where the founders have used the agency funds to finance vacations. And they're in Rome, and all the employees' checks are bounced.
Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Just don't do it. Thank you. And last but not least, the retirement planning. We're done basically. I just want to, I've got some things here. I made up some copies. I made up about 25. Don't anybody fight over them, whatever you do. But they're important I don't think a lot of people, when I talk to people about their business, many of them haven't thought beyond. One of my first questions when I'm coaching a business is, what does your business look like? How big or small do you want your business to look? That's a first step, and you'd be surprised at how many people can't answer that question for me. As we move along, I'll say, well, what's your retirement plan like? Now, many of us here have retirement plans already, but if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have, the entrepreneurs coming forward, 40 and under, or 50 and under actually, are going to have to create their own retirement plan. There are no pensions unless you're military. You're going to have to create a retirement plan for yourself. And we're not going to go into this today, but I have these. I would encourage you to look at the very last page. These are becoming very popular 401, owner-only 401k plans. And I'll leave these down here, and yes?
I would have personal experience. 401ks are for retirement, not for starting a business. All right, and you can borrow against a 401k. You borrow against a 401k for an emergency. You borrow against a 401k, pay for a kid to go to college, whatever. Don't borrow against a 401k. Personal experience to start a business, because you've lost it at that point.
Exactly.
Okay, you've lost it at that point,
Exactly.
and the penalties associated with that will strip gears for your financial livelihood for the next 10 to 15 years after that. Personal experience.
Yeah. And the taxation part of that.
That's what I was talking about.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one thing to keep in mind, to always kind of prioritize retirement saving before college saving, because somebody will give you a loan to go to college and nobody's going to give you a loan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Very important. Very important. So, there aren't 11, so that means we're done. So, thank you all.
Yeah, we'll put it up on Facebook for y'all if you want to have at it. But so we never go over 10 o'clock, and I know it's 10:15, so if you've got to go, I completely understand that. There's still coffee next door. There's still time for networking. We're not getting kicked out of the theater. The whole reason we moved upstairs was so that we could linger. So we're glad to keep chatting about it if you want to keep chatting about it.
An announcement, if I can. Can I make an announcement?
Sure.
All right. On Tuesday, August the 6th, Midlands Technical College and the Center for Entrepreneurial Success is sponsoring a 1099 contracting seminar, 3-hour contractor seminar for both as an employee, 1099 as an employee, and 1099 as an employer. Tom Pietras is one of our speakers. We've got an HR lawyer that will also be speaking. $99 at our Northeast campus. So the information is going out today on the internet. So that's one thing that we're doing.
So let's talk. We got some time. You leave if you need to leave. We're going to talk if you want to talk. Who's got questions?
Tom, what's up?